Welcome to Cat and Jess Talk the Best, where we're going to be talking about IMDb's top 250 movies from April 12th, 2018. My name is Kat.
And I'm Jess.
Today we are talking about number 182, Monty Python's Life of Brian, which is a comedy film from 1979. This has an 8.1 on 343,513 votes. So our mystery line that we are revealing today is from Rang di Basanti. And hold on one sec, I forgot to check.
Yeah, it's from Rang.
No. I forgot to check to see if anybody guessed on it.
Oh.
Okay, not there. See here. I don't think anybody did, but I don't remember. This is what happens when you get sick. You just say, fuck it all.
Or busy like me.
Okay, yep. So there were no correct guesses on this one. But the line was, roads. Where we're going, we don't need roads. And that is from Back to the Future.
Come on, people. That's such an easy line. It's like literally the last line of the movie.
Yeah.
It is. I know. I wore a Back to the Future shirt today also. I did. It was awesome.
All right. So, we have 5 colors. We have green, purple, light blue, red, and dark blue.
Let's go with red.
Okay. That one's super easy. Nope, not that one. I should do this before we start recording, but... Okay. Oh no, it wasn't the airplanes. It was Beauty killed the Beast. That is our mystery line for this week. And we will reveal that one in Blade Runner. So you guys have a long time to guess that one because that's coming out. It's our first episode in January. First episode of the new year.
Is Blade Runner? Was it the Blade Runner 2049?
2049. Yeah.
Okay.
Because the other Blade Runner's like way up there, so.
Yeah, that's true.
All right. So, make sure you take guesses on that one. And so our spoiler-free synopsis for Life of Brian. A young man, Brian, who was born one stable down and on the same night as Jesus, becomes intrigued by a young rebel, Judith. To try and impress her, Brian joins the independence movement against the Romans, the People's Front of Judea. However, in an attempt to hide from the Romans, he relays some of the teachings he heard from Jesus, which ends up spurring a crowd to believe he is the Messiah. While trying to get rid of his followers and reunite with Judith, he embarks on several misadventures.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the movie. Alright, so this is directed by one of the Monty Pythons, Terry Jones. He's also directed movies like Absolutely Everything, Eric the Viking, and Mr. Toad's Wild Race. And, of course, this stars the 6 members of the Monty Python troupe. Graham Chapman, John Cleese, Michael Palin, Terry Jones, Terry Gilliam, and Eric Idle. I had to name all of them.
So, obviously I recognize them all from Holy Grail, because I love that movie. But Eric Idle I recognized specifically from Casper.
Yes.
I was
He
so
is in
excited.
Casper.
I was like, hey, it's Casper. It's the dude in Casper.
He is in Casper. I was like, Eric's done a lot of, acting. In, kids' movies and everything.
Yeah.
So,
and
he was in Ella Enchanted, too, if you didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean, I do recognize him from other things, but that was the one I was most excited for recognizing him for.
Casper.
Yes. If that doesn't show how childish I am. So, the ratings. On IMDb, 29.3% of users rated this at an 8. On Metacritic, it has a 77. Rotten Tomatoes, it has a 95 on 64 critical reviews. 2 of the fresh. Peter Bradshaw. Life of Brian is an unexpectedly earnest, sweet-natured hymn to the idea of tolerance. Okay.
That's what I was about to say. I'm like, okay.
I didn't read it, sorry. I really didn't read any of them. I just saw them and I was like, that works.
Yeah, it's fine.
Sometimes I read them and sometimes I don't. It just depends on what I'm doing at the time. So, C.H. Newell. Life of Brian is undoubtedly the greatest religious satire of all time. Comedic gold.
No, I can agree with that.
Yeah, I don't really watch religious things, so sure.
Well, it's a religious satire, so.
I know I don't watch anything religious. So.
And to me, this is just, yeah, I agree with them completely.
So, Too Rotten, J.R. Jones. I've always considered it the group's nadir. It seems toothlessly silly. I mean, it is kind of silly at points. But then it's also got some kind of more serious jokes, I guess.
I guess.
From seeing this and then also having seen Holy Grail before, they do that. They do some stuff that's just silly, and then they do some stuff that's, more serious jokes.
It's you have to really pay attention to their jokes. I mean, because I will admit, I've seen a bunch of Monty Python things, so they, their jokes don't fly over my head. I think some of them may fly over people's heads, and that might be part of what they're trying to say, but I don't know. I'm like, okay, it's supposed to, it's a comedy. What do you expect? Is it supposed to be serious all the time? No.
No. That's the point.
That's the point, I know.
And then Christopher Lloyd. While the most ambitious and thematically coherent of the Monty Python feature films, Life of Brian is also the least of them.
Yeah, I feel like they're contradicting themselves in that statement, but whatever.
I don't know. So, the consensus. One of the more cutting-edge films of the 1970s, this religious farce from the classic comedy troupe, is as poignant as it is funny and satirical. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I agree.
All right. So, the money. The budget was $4 million. Opening weekend, it made $140,034. Domestically, it made $20,206,622. Internationally, it made $508,248 for a worldwide total of $20,714,870. Its top lifetime gross is number 3,499. And there are no awards to speak of for this movie at all.
I wonder why.
Well, when you get banned in a ton of countries, it's kind of hard to get some awards.
They were expecting that. Come on.
Yeah, that's okay.
So I'll let you go first for initial thoughts.
Okay. I watched this a few days ago, and you had told me kind of what it was about before, and then I read the synopsis, because I was gonna do my notes, and then I decided not to, so I read the synopsis, and then I got sidetracked doing something else, so I didn't do my notes, so I knew kind of the gist of it, for the most part. But then I also kind of felt like the synopsis was a little bit off, in my opinion. Just like, because, they say, like, all that about how he's, like, the false messiah type thing.
Yeah.
I feel like that was closer to the end of the movie. Like, the rest of it was just kind of crazy skits. Like, I feel like this whole entire movie was just a bunch of crazy skits put together. And I feel like that's what Monty Python is, like, especially coming from having seen only the Holy Grail. It's just a bunch of crazy skits that have the same theme and are done really well. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I do enjoy it a lot. I just feel like the synopsis kind of threw me off from what it was going to be a little bit.
Okay.
Which is good, because if it was exactly like what the synopsis said, I probably wouldn't have liked it as much. Just because the synopsis makes it seem much more religious than it is. Because I was expecting it to be like, everybody literally mistakes him for Jesus, and he's just going to go about being Jesus throughout the whole movie, and then that's not what happens.
And not at all.
But that's what the synopsis to me made it seem like. So, but I did enjoy it a lot. I thought it was pretty funny. I think there was only really one skit, I guess, that I didn't really like. I mean, it was funny at first, but then I thought it kind of drug on too long. But other than that, pretty much the rest of them were good. I think just the only thing is the fact that it was kind of had that religious basis to it that I just don't really care for at all. So
that's fair. So me next.
Go for it.
Okay, it's been years since I first saw this. I will say my dad introduced me to Monty Python, and this is one of the first things I watched from Monty Python. The first time I watched it, I was just laughing so much. And it still makes me laugh that much till today. Like, I was just watching it earlier, and I'm like, this is still funny. I've seen this I don't know how many times. I've lost track, and it's still funny. But, again, I'm a huge Monty Python fan. Huge. I mean, I've driven to a different state just to see two of them perform. So, I was very excited to see that we had Life of Brian on here, because I'm like, all right, this is awesome. Great movie. It is. And me, being the religious person, you would think, nah, you wouldn't like that. No. They did it beautifully. I thought it was great how they did it. Yeah, I actually saw this in the movie theater, too. I got to see it, I think it was last year, the year before, that I saw in the movie theater for its anniversary. And it's even better on the big screen. It is. Like, it's just like, movies always change when it's on the big screen and in the movie theater. So, I mean, yeah, I love this movie. I mean, I can't say much about it. My favorite song of all time is at the very end of this movie. So, that just bumps it up for me.
That song is so funny.
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
All right. That was your warning. If you haven't watched the film yet, then stop listening and come back after you've watched it. So it starts off with the wise men, right? Like
the three wise men. They're riding, and they stop at like the first stable they see.
Yeah.
And they enter, and this is I will say this: Monty Python's pretty well known for having it's an all men group dressed as women.
Yeah.
So this is Terry Jones dressed as a woman.
See, what I thought was like so funny about this is just like everything that she was saying would have been my exact thoughts. Like if I was literally like transported to that time and place where Jesus is supposedly born, I'd have been like, what? Like everything she's going on about, or I guess Terry Jones is going on about, my exact response is like, you followed a star to come see a baby, and you didn't know if it was gonna really be the savior or not. Like,
it's
what?
Like, and you brought gifts.
Yeah. My first response would have been exactly the same as hers. Go away. Well, his. You know
Yeah, she tries to show him the way, but they're like, we have gifts. And she's like, oh, well, never mind then, come on in.
Yeah. But then they kind of realize that they're in the wrong spot.
Yeah. And, like, she's like, don't worry about the myrrh next time, There's a whole bit about it being a bomb and everything.
Yeah. But I thought this was a really like well put together skit, because it's also kind of reasonable too. Like, me not being any type of religious at all would have been like I always think, how do they know that that's the only baby? Like, there could have been plenty of other babies. Like, they could have got the wrong baby like this, and I was just like, that literally played out exactly what I would have imagined it playing out like. So
there you go. They were thinking of you. They were.
Yeah. Before I was even born.
And then, of course, like, after they've, realized, like, oh, wrong baby, because, they see the right stable, and there's, like, these big glowing, like, orbs around, like, Mary and Joseph and Jesus. And they're like, oh, okay, this is the right one, the glowing things there. Glowing people. They must be holy. And then it goes to the credits. This is the song Brian.
Yeah, I liked these credits.
Good job by Terry Gilliam, by the way. He did the credits.
Yeah, I did know that. Because wasn't it, they were both going to, like, co-direct it, but they did that for Holy Grail and just...
That was a hot mess.
Yeah, so they decided one of them was going to direct this, and then the other one could do, like, the art direction type stuff.
Yes, that's pretty much what happened. I was like, well, they're both Terrys, so I mean...
Yeah.
They kind of clash a little bit, but it's all right.
But I did like these credits. I thought they were very well done.
I'm like typical Terry Gilliam animation. I mean, that's just how his animation is in Flying Circus too. So, and of course, when we get to Holy Grail, same thing.
Yeah.
That's later on the list.
I think it's funny how much of a contrast these credits, like these opening credits, are from our last movie, from Wild Tales.
Oh yeah.
It's completely contrasting. Like, Wild Tales one didn't really make any sense at all for the movie, and then these credits make a ton of sense. Like, even having only seen that first skit, these credits make so much sense. It's crazy.
They're geniuses. That's all I have to say. Then it says Judea AD 33, Saturday afternoon, about tea time.
Yeah. And you gotta remind me later. I'll put a star next to it, too. I have a little trivia for that.
Okay. You see, like, this crowd, they seem like they're heading somewhere. And, like, it shows that they're heading to hear Jesus on the mountainside.
Yep.
And he's saying these things called the Beatitudes, like, blessed are, like, the meek, blessed are, all these different things. And
blessed the people.
Yeah, the blessed people, like the different things. And people in the way back of the crowd, you only hear, like, okay, I'll say this, in the Bible, you only hear, like, him just saying, like, to the close people. But you don't get to hear the other people's, like, how they hear it, especially the people in the way far back. Yeah,
this is another one that is, like, anytime we, like, because so far we've seen a few, like, of these Jesus-type based movies. This is one of them, like, one of the things where I'm just like, this is exactly how I feel. Like, how do the people way in the back even know what he's saying? And this is exactly what my conversation would be like. So far, this movie's off to a great start, and I have enjoyed it. Like, this entire skit here is great as well.
It's
I
like,
love it.
they're like, blessed are the cheesemakers?
Yeah.
Yeah, like, blessed are the cheesemakers, blessed are the Greek. Like, they just keep mishearing everything he's saying. And they're like, there's this big old fight about, you know, like, big noses and all that. And
trying to get each other to shut up and all that.
Yeah, there's that whole thing there.
Yeah.
And you see now that Brian is grown up there. He's grown up, he's a man, and he's with his mom.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, let's go. You can't hear anything. Let's go to the stoning.
Yeah. And then that's pretty much the end of that. They, like, walk away. And then we go to another skit. I'm just going to, like, call them skits because that's really what they are. They just happen to piece together really well.
It's like they are. I mean, well, I don't know if you'll ever see Meaning of Life, but Meaning of Life is literally skits. Like, they are actual skits. And the only thing that connects them is it says, like, part 1, like, birth or something, part 2, part 3, you know.
Gotcha.
I'm like, that one's pretty funny, too, but.
Yeah, I was just looking to see which Monty Python movies I have access to, at least in my media server. And I have, and now for something completely different.
Good one.
Holy Grail, obviously. Life of Brian, obviously. And then also The Meaning of Life. So I was thinking about watching them because so far, 2 out of 2, I've liked the Monty Python movies. But I feel like it's because it's that dry sense of humor. It's that British humor, which is what I really like, the sarcastic stuff. So
it's like we could agree on that type of comedy.
Yeah. But anyways, we go to the stoning.
It's like, well, before like he goes to
the
stoning,
beards.
you see that you don't know their names yet, but it's a group of people. They're like dressed in black and everything, and there's a woman with them and everything. And Brian's like, "Ooh, that's a pretty girl," you know. We don't know her name yet either, but that's when we see her.
That distracted boyfriend meme.
Yes.
Vibe going on. That's what happens.
Exactly. Then we get to where they're walking to the stoning and everything. And the mom's got to put on a beard and everything because women aren't allowed to go to stonings.
Which I think is so funny because it's a bunch of men dressed up pretending to be women who are now dressed up pretending to be men.
Exactly. It's like, yeah. Of course, they buy stones to throw at, at the stoning and everything. And it's like, yeah, just exactly what you said. It's literally a bunch of, well, like you said, men pretending to be women, pretending to be men.
Yeah. At
this stoning. And the only reason why the person's going to be stoned is because they said, Jehovah. That's it. And you're not supposed to say that, I guess.
Yeah. And so this one, I did like this skit. I felt like, God, what's his name? John Cleese, isn't that his name?
John Cleese is just gold.
I felt like he did really good in this skit, and it was funny, but I also kind of felt like it went on just a little bit too long. At least in my opinion. Just this one went a little too long.
Because he's the one leading, like, the stoning and everything. He knows reading the charges against him and everything. And one person throws a stone early.
Yeah.
And he's like, all right, who threw it? And you hear a bunch of high-pitched voices saying, she did, like he did. And then it drops down to really low voices saying it. That part always cracks me up.
Yeah.
Because they're supposed to be pretending to be men, but then they use their women's high voices. And yeah, which is great.
Yeah. But then they keep, anytime that Jehovah gets said, they just throw the rocks at whoever said Jehovah. And the guy's like trying to plead that you should be able to say Jehovah if you want to say it. And then it ends up like 3 different people get stones thrown at them because they keep saying Jehovah. And then they end up crushing John Cleese under a big boulder.
It's a big rock pretty much. And yeah.
Oh, I do have a trivia about that one too.
Well, then
Sorry.
mark it.
Yep, I did mark it. Okay.
And then you go to, like, this big statue being brought in. And Brian and his mom are walking through, like, the marketplace. And there's the lepers asking, for, like, money, like beggars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then this one is like, alms for an ex-leper. Because, Jesus cured him. It took away his livelihood.
And Brian is like, an ex-leper? Like, he's so confused.
And then Brian gives him some money. And he's like, that's it. I'm like, oh my God. That's great.
Yeah.
And they get home and they see that there's a Roman, like, soldier sitting in the house waiting.
Yep.
And Brian's like, what the hell is this dude doing in here? And the mom's like, this is why we're able to live in this house. Like, their little place is like, so shush. And besides, you're part Roman too. And she kind of, like, tells that that's how, she had Brian. She had a little thing with a Roman centurion.
Yep. And then she's about to have a little thing with another Roman centurion.
And so Brian leaves and she's like, all right, she's like, how you doing? Like, she literally, like, kneels down in front of this Roman soldier, and then you can just guess what happens after that.
Yeah. And then it's the Colosseum.
The children's matinee.
I thought that was funny.
And there's,
like, really?
It's like the children's matinee. It is like the bloodiest thing. Where there's like limbs all over the place. Someone's trying to pick them up and everything.
Yeah. And this is where Brian works, I guess, because he's walking around selling like wolf nipples or something like that. I don't really know. some weird stuff. And then we see that the 4 people in black that we saw earlier, that Brian got distracted by the chick that was with him. They're there, and he like goes over there to sell his wares to them.
And I like.
Oh, but first, Stan decides he wants to be a woman.
Yes.
And what did he say his name? Loretta?
Yeah. This is Eric Idle's character. He's like, I want to be a woman because I want to have a baby. I want to have babies.
And like, I get their argument. Like, even if you were to become a woman, it's still physically impossible. Like, you cannot have babies.
They're like, but you can have the right to want to have babies.
Yeah, you can have that right all you want, but you physically cannot have babies.
And I love how it's John Cleese's character trying to like get it into his thick brain that you cannot do that.
It was funny and it was very well done.
I'm like, John Cleese is really good at being like, the jerk.
Yeah.
In a sense of the troupe. So I mean, he played it really well. I'm like, he really is like that in real life too. So I'm like, he's not acting too much, really. He can be like that. He can be straight, like, forward. He can be a jerk. He's just that good.
Yeah.
And then down in the Colosseum part, there's this man. He has to fight a gladiator, but he's like, nope. And he like just runs around.
Yeah, he just runs until he gets tired. And this reminded me of Game of Thrones. There's this one scene where the sellsword is talking about having to fight this big, huge dude. And he's like, I could just run around until he gets tired and then have at him. But that's a lot of work. And then I see this guy and I'm like, this is probably just about how that fight would have went.
Probably.
It was just funny. I was like, interesting.
And so Brian goes over to the group and, he's selling his things and everything. And this group's called the People's Front of Judea.
Yeah. Not the other 2 options that they could have had.
Yeah.
I forgot what they were, but
I always forget too, because it's literally just like the same name, but just like rearrange the letters, rearrange the words.
Rearrange the words.
I'm like, really?
Yeah.
And he wants to join him since, their group is about, like, trying to get rid of the Romans. And he doesn't like the Romans either.
Yeah.
Even though he's part Roman. And,
Nearly headless Nick. I was trying to figure it out. I figured it out.
Where you know John Cleese from, besides Monty Python?
Yes. I mean, I recognize his voice because he's a voice actor as well. But
yes.
his face, I was trying to picture it and I couldn't, and then I figured it out.
Yeah, he's nearly headless Nick. He is.
Yep.
He is. He's also the king in Shrek.
Yeah.
You didn't know that.
That's where I recognize his voice from.
Oh, okay.
And Elder Scrolls. He's in the Elder Scrolls games.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, he does a lot of voice acting.
Yeah.
So does Eric.
Anyways, continue.
So, like I said, yeah, the man running around, he wins because the other guy, like, you know, has a heart attack and dies. He's like, I win. Yeah. And so the group gives Brian a job to write on these statues and all the walls and everything. Like, Romans go home or something. But
yeah,
this is at night, and he's caught by the Romans, like, it's actually John Cleese's character catches him.
Yeah.
And he's looked at like, how it's written. He's like, that's not right. That's not how you say that. And so he literally makes him fix it and write it over 100 times.
So this is the one skit that I was just like, it started off like it was going to be entertaining, and I thought it was going to be super short, like he caught him, and then, like, that was it. And then it would be a funny, like, he caught him type thing. But then they go into this whole conjugation of the words and all that crap.
Yeah.
And this is the one that I just kind of felt like was a little bit unnecessary and went on way too long. But it also kind of reminded me of Spanish class in high school, and I hated Spanish class in high school.
There it is. I'm like, there's got to be a hatred behind this somewhere. Yep, I figured.
And I don't hate Spanish. Like, the language is perfectly fine. I just hated the class.
Yeah.
I was just so bored. But I think that's probably why this one didn't really get me very good. Like, it wasn't funny to me. Like, it was okay, but I just didn't really find this one funny.
I get you. I do. It's like, yeah, he threatens, like, finish this by sunrise or I'll cut your balls off.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, that's a nice threat. And he, like, finishes it by morning and everything. It's, like, written, like, all over the place. And then he sees that, you know, the guys have told him to finish it. They're like, okay. They're like, no, don't do it again.
Yeah.
And then these other soldiers come up. They're like, what the hell just happened? And so they chase after Brian. And he is saved by Judith. That's the girl's name.
Yep.
She pulls him into, like, you know, like, the secret place.
Yeah, where they're going on about their plan and what they're going to do. They're going to go steal somebody's wife.
I believe it was Pilate, if I remember correctly.
Okay. I couldn't remember if it was his or somebody else that was important. I just know they were going to steal somebody's wife.
Yeah, it's like the meeting. They're going to, like, break into it's Pilate's house and everything and kidnap his wife. And they're like, there's this entire skit about, they're like, what have the Romans done for us?
Yeah.
And, like, they list all these things.
Yeah, that part I thought was funny because it's just like, well, besides that, and besides that. And
They're like, okay,
like,
well, that. Okay, well, besides that, what else, you know?
I was like, this is the quickest way to make someone mad. Just poke a bunch of holes in their logic.
Exactly.
And it was great, so.
I'm like, that's a pretty good one. I'll say that one. I always remember that one. Like, every time I always look forward to watching that part. Because it's like, there's history behind it, too. And I like history jokes.
Yeah. And it's funny because literally, like you're saying, history, all that stuff is actually stuff that the Romans did do for us, so. And if you know literally anything about the Romans, you know that, so it just makes it even better that they specifically pulled real things that the Romans did. But then it's also kind of, like, I can kind of see where the joke was kind of coming from, because it's just like, okay, well, if we were invaded and they fixed everything that was wrong with our country, we'd still be upset because we were invaded, and then this would kind of like be another conversation that we were having, you know.
And it's like, if I remember correctly, yes, that's what I thought. I'm like, they have the history joke in there because Michael Palin is like, he has his degree in history.
Oh, okay.
That's part of it. And I'm like, because I always laugh because this group is so educated that they think such higher things, like their jokes are so high level because they're so educated.
Well, I feel
all
like
of them are.
I feel like that's really part of the reason that I like the Monty Python stuff, from at least the 2 I've seen so far, is just because they don't dumb it down. I feel like it's a lot of the reason comedies are not my favorite thing. It's because they just try to dumb it down so much. I'm like, you don't have to dumb it down. Most people watching comedies are not stupid. They don't need it dumbed down. That's why I really like this type of comedy. Because it's actually smart jokes.
And I'm like, Michael's just an example. I mean, they all have college degrees. I mean, Graham was technically a doctor, a medical doctor.
Dang.
So I'm like, they're not stupid at all.
Yeah.
But at this, they hear a knocking at the door, and they hide really badly.
Yeah.
Like putting like a blanket over you or something, and just standing still. Like they would know someone's there.
Yeah.
But it's a false alarm because it's just, Brian and Judith coming in.
Yeah.
And they let Brian join because they're like, we like doers in our group. And so then it goes to the nighttime, and Michael Palin's the one narrating this part, saying that they have to go underneath Pilot's house in the sewers. So don't wear your nice sandals.
Yeah.
And so they get through and everything. They go inside. I love this. This part always cracks me up. Did you notice the it's like
inappropriate painting on the floor?
Yes, the inappropriate painting on the floor. Thank you. Did you notice that?
Yes. The one where they come up in an inappropriate spot?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was like, they did that on purpose. And I love it. I'm like, do I want to explain what it is or no?
I feel like, having just talked about how intelligent these movies are, we could just skip the explaining of it.
I'm like, you could watch it for yourselves.
Yeah.
And see how funny that part is. Let's see, where am I at? And they are trying to, they're sneaking through the hallways and everything. And they're trying to be quiet. And then they realize there's another group there.
Yeah, I think this one is the People's Front of Judea. Or no, that's what they are. They're the Front of Judea's people or something like that. One of the other two that is the same name but just worded differently. And then they're like, oh, we should pair up against our common enemy. And then they name the third group. And then they're like, no, Pontius Pilate. And they're like, oh, okay. And then they start fighting.
Yeah, they fight each other. And, Brian's, trying to get them to stop. And there's these two Roman guards just watching everything that they're doing. And they're just shaking their heads oh, they're stupid.
Yeah.
And, after the fight and everything, everyone is, all, knocked out or hurt or dead or something. And Brian's the only one standing.
Yeah.
And so he gets captured and he gets thrown in jail. And then the jail cell, there's another prisoner hanging up in there. And he just gives Brian so much shit.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, someone's a favorite or something. You only got spit on. Or
Yeah,
you only
that's
got, like, shackles or something like that. Because he's been hanging up there for 5 years.
I think it's so funny. Like, this guy literally was cast just to hang upside down. I think it's funny.
I mean, it's Michael Palin, technically. So,
oh, is it him?
yeah, that's Michael Palin. The troupe did so many characters in this movie. You just gotta watch and pay attention.
Yeah.
I recognize him because in Flying Circus, the It's guy is kind of dressed like the same way.
Oh, okay.
That's what it is.
I was looking at the names of them and I didn't see that one under his name, but it's probably...
There's a lot of characters.
Yeah, I was like, there's a lot of them, and I probably just didn't catch what that guy's name was, so... But I think it's funny, like, that's literally all this character is there for. Just to hang upside down.
And give Brian shit. That's about it.
Yeah.
And so he gets taken out to see Pontius Pilate, who has a speech impediment. And he has a hard time saying R's. He says them as W's.
Yeah.
And this part always cracks me up, too.
Yeah, this part is funny. I was trying to think of what I was going to say and I forgot. Never mind.
It's like, because he's talking about, with his speech impediment, he has a hard time saying certain words and everything. And the guards are just trying not to laugh.
Yeah.
They're trying so hard not to laugh. And John Cleese's character, who's like, the main Roman centurion, whatever.
Yeah.
He's there and he's like, he keeps mishearing what Pilate's saying, and he's saying these different things, and it doesn't match at all. And it's just like, oh, Lord.
And Pontius Pilate is just, like, looking at him like, what?
Like, what? That's not what I said.
Yeah.
And Pilate's talking about his friend Bickus Dickus. And Bickus Dickus has a wife. Her name is Incontia. I can't even say it. And so they're laughing, the guards and everything are laughing so much that Brian escapes.
Yeah, because they're just so distracted.
I mean, I would be too.
Yeah.
I can't even get it out without laughing.
Well, and it's so funny because, like, later on in the movie, they just continue to play on that.
Oh, yes.
But with, like, this big, huge crowd.
Oh, the crowd part at the end, yeah. Yeah, we'll talk about it when we get there. And so he's climbing up these stairs and everything. He falls off because the steps are because it's a spiral staircase.
Yeah. And
the person didn't finish building it, and so he falls off, but he falls off into a spaceship.
Yeah, I was like, this part just did not make any sense at all. Just came out of nowhere. I was like, what in the world?
It's not supposed to make sense. Because guess who had this part?
This is Terry Gilliam, I
yep.
know.
I was like, this is Gilliam's part.
But I was just like, I kind of felt like this was unnecessary. Like, literally, the only purpose of this was to get Brian from the top of the stairs to the bottom of the stairs.
Exactly. It's supposed to be absolutely ridiculous and silly and be like, what the hell did I just watch? Because I remember saying that the first time I watched it. I was like, what the hell did I just watch?
See, in my mind, it was just like, this is one of those silly portions. Like that one review said something about being silly. I felt like this was that, like, super silly portion where I feel like they could have done something more period appropriate, but I don't really know what they could have done, so this is what we got. So
yeah, and like you said, it was literally to get it from the top to the bottom, and this spaceship's in space and it's getting attacked by asteroids and it gets shot down by this other spaceship and it crashes into the back where he was, and Brian comes out fine, of course.
Yeah.
And he gets chased by the guards again, because they're waiting.
Yeah.
And he sees, you see a bunch of, like, you know, people preaching, like, you know, ranting about, like, their religious stuff and everything, and
when it first showed up, this part, I wrote down, crazy dirty guy.
yeah, I mean, yeah.
That's what I thought this was about to go into. And then it was just a whole bunch of different, like, people preaching. And I was like, oh, okay.
It doesn't go all to them yet. And then it goes to, Brian is trying to buy a beard.
Yeah.
To, you know, cover up and everything.
Like, disguise himself with stuff. And he's got to haggle because he's not haggling properly.
And he's like, the guy's got to teach him about haggle. He's like, no. Gotta start low and then you get higher.
Yeah. And he's just like, this is completely pointless. Just leave me alone. Let me go.
And then, like, the guy's like, well, you can have the gourd too, you know, for free.
Yeah.
And then I gotta haggle over the gourd too.
Yeah. But then he runs off. He has his beard and he's like he's supposed to be getting his change and he just runs off. He's like, forget this. I'm ready to go.
He's like, just whatever. It's fine. And then it goes to the meeting. They're having another meeting. The People's Front.
Yeah.
And Brian comes in. And they're hiding poorly again.
Oh my god. This was my favorite part.
Well, go ahead then. I will let you talk.
It was so funny. So they're like talking about all kinds of stuff and talking about plans and crucifixions and all this crap. I didn't really care about what they were talking about. My favorite part is like the because you know he had led the soldiers there, so they all hide and he goes out to Brian goes and steps on this like little balcony thing, but it's like a very unstable balcony out the back little doorway there, and everybody else is hiding very poorly. Like the one guy is under a sheet. The other guy's got his head in a bucket or something like that with his legs very clearly sticking out. It's just they're ridiculous hiding spots. But the soldiers come in, the one old guy answers the door, and he's like going on and on about something, and then soldiers go in and it's just like hop 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 like what's that movie? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I don't know what that movie is, but they're like hop 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 hop, and they go in, and then they go hop 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 hop, and they go out, and they leave because they didn't find anything. But then they come back again, and they hide.
It's like because they forgot to check one spot.
Yeah, so they go in again, hop 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 hop, and check, and then come back out, hop 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 hop, with a spoon. And they're like, "We got a spoon," and I'm just like, "What?" And then they leave again, and then they come back almost immediately, and the guy's like, "Hey!"
It's like, you didn't give us a chance to hide.
Yeah, and I was just like, that was like the most hilarious part of this movie, just because it was just so ridiculous. And not like ridiculous like the spaceship, just like ridiculous in the way that they were hiding, the way the soldiers were walking, everything that the old guy was saying, and then all the while Brian is like trying not to fall off this balcony, and then when they leave the last time, he does fall off the balcony. He like knocks out this other preacher guy, and that's when he starts like preaching what he's heard Jesus say, and then everybody is like questioning him and stuff, and that part was funny, and then it gets into the like preaching part, and that's when I was a little bit less interested, but that's just because it like changed directions a little bit, but it was still funny.
Yeah, so Brian goes like he like just saying whatever the hell he wants to like, you know, just blend in, and people are like stop and they're listening to him, and they're like, well, you know, it's like, what about the birds? Or what about the flowers?
Yeah, it's like going on. And they're like, he's got a problem with the flowers now.
It's like, I have a lot of quotes, and one of my favorite quotes is from this part, so I'll save it. And then, you know, he's like covering up, like trying to, you know, make sure he's not detected and everything.
Yeah.
And then he starts saying, you know, like, blessed are like this, you know. And they're like, well, keep going. This is making sense now. And then they start calling him like master. And he's like, oh shit.
Yeah.
They're like,
And
we're shooting at him. They're like, he's like, here. He has his gourd with him still. And he's like, just take it, whatever.
Some of the soldiers come up, but there was a soldier who I guess protects the preacher people was standing there. And so the soldiers come up and are like looking at Brian, but then the soldier's like, oh no, he's been here forever. Because he just thinks it's the same crazy guy that was up there already, so. But then he's like, gives the gourd to the people, and they think it's like all that magical gourd or whatever, and I'm just like, he literally just gave that to you to get away.
They're like, it's the holy gourd,
Yeah, so they keep following him.
Yeah, they chase after him, and his shoe falls off, and then of course,
so some people pick up his shoe.
They're like, it's a sign. He gives us a sign. I'm like, oh my god, this is great. It's making fun of all this religious stuff right now, and I love it. I was like, I could laugh at religion. I can, because I don't got something shoved up my ass. Because I have a sense of humor about it. So that's probably why I like this movie so much.
But then, so he's like running off, and some people are following him, yelling about the shoe, and then other people are following him, yelling about the gourd. And then there's one guy just standing there like, hey, let's talk about this. And then everybody ends up leaving, and so he just follows anyway.
And Brian's climbing up like to the mountain and everything, and the crowd's following him. And he sees this hermit in like this hole. And this is Terry Jones. And you don't know it yet, but he's naked.
Yeah.
And so he's like, I need a place to hide. He's like, can you help me? And Brian jumps into the hole, and he lands on the hermit, and he makes the guy talk. And he hadn't talked for 18 years.
Yeah, it was like a vow of silence and stuff.
And now the guy won't shut up.
Yeah. He's like going on, and then the followers show up, and they're trying to get Brian to tell them what to do, and he says something about the juniper bushes.
Because they say they're hungry. And he's like, well, there's a juniper bush right there. And they're like, it's a miracle! I'm like, oh, God.
Yep. And then the naked guy with the long hair and the long beard gets super mad because they're over there eating his juniper bushes, so he jumps out of the hole. And this is where you find out he's naked.
Oh, he naked. Uh-huh. He naked. I was like, this is not the first... This is this is the first time you see someone naked. But there's more.
This is not full frontal nudity because he's got his beard and his hair is way too long. This is like full backside nudity. Butt and it gets some danglies.
I'm like, and this is not Terry Jones' first time doing this on the screen at all. And Flying Circus, he's done that before. So I'm like, it's not a big deal to him to do that.
I mean, I was kind of expecting it when I saw him down there in the hole and I saw how long the hair was. And then when he jumped out of the hole, I was like, yep, there it is.
There's the naked hermit.
But I thought this part was pretty funny, too.
And there's people coming up, saying, like, Brian's performed all these miracles already. The blind man, he's like, I was blind, but now I see. And then he falls into the hole.
Yeah. And Brian's like still trying to convince him that he's not the Messiah and stuff.
And then he's like, he won't believe me. Okay, fine, I am. He's like, and then like, go away, And then like, oh, he admits it. And I'm like, he's like, I can't win with these people. And the hermit tries attacking Brian because he's like, that was my juniper bush. That was my only source of food. He gets super mad at him. He's like, you made me talk. You're eating my juniper berries and everything. So he tries to attack him, and the crowd's like, no, you're not going to do that to Brian. So they lift him up. They lift up the hermit and take him away.
Yep. And then at some point he comes across Judith.
Yeah, because she's there. She followed behind.
Oh, okay.
She was there, and,
I was writing something down, so I got distracted.
She's there, and their eyes meet and everything, and then it's the next morning.
Yep, they go hook up.
They hooked up, because you see Brian is, laying in bed, and there's Judith, and it looks like they're both not wearing clothing, so you can only guess what happened there.
Yeah.
And, Brian, he, like, stretches, gets up out of bed, he opens the window, he's completely naked, and you see everything in the front.
Yeah.
Everything. And, like, I have a trivia for that, too, if you don't mind.
Oh, I know what it is, and I think it's funny.
Oh, yeah, it's a great one. And like, the crowd's out there, like, waiting for him. He's like, oh, shit.
Yeah. And, so he goes out there and is, like, talking to him, and then his mom comes up, and she's, like, addressing them, and he's like, okay, well, you can have 1 minute.
It's like, 1 minute. That's it.
And so he gets to go talk to him again and all that. But then, back inside the house, Mom's freaking out about Judith being there, and Judith's just, like, defending.
I'm like, because she's naked, too.
Yeah. She's defending Brian and all that.
It's like, she's like, who the hell is this?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, when a strange woman you don't know is in your house, I mean, that's a good question to ask.
Especially when she's naked.
Especially. And I love how she, like, the mom just, like, staring at her. Because full naked. And how do I say this in a nice way? There was no such thing as shaving back then. So,
yeah.
All that beautifulness there.
But, then he's like, Brian had been talking to the people, and then, they're, like, repeating all kinds of stuff at him. And then, Mom goes back and talks to him again, and they, are asking questions.
Some very personal questions, too.
Yeah. And then, Brian's, like, getting ready to go somewhere, I guess, and he, like, walks out the door, and there's a bunch of people outside waiting, but then the soldiers come and take him.
Yes.
He gets arrested.
He gets arrested and gets sent to Pilate. And Pilate's like, you know what? You're just going to get crucified. It's fine.
Yeah.
Add you to the list, because there's a lot. I think he was number 140 or something, because it's
something like
but
that,
the special crucifixion, because it's Passover.
They needed a nice round number.
Exactly.
That's what he said. And, so, then we see the people's front of Judea. They're making more plans. They make a bunch of plans, but don't ever really do much of anything.
Yeah, and Judith comes in, she's like, Brian just got arrested. Are you going to do something about it?
Yeah. And they're like, okay, we'll discuss it. And she gets mad at him and, like, storms off because she's going to go save him herself, apparently.
Yeah.
And then they decide that they're going to go do it, but then nothing, once again, they start their plan, but nothing really comes of it.
Yeah, and so Brian's, of course, in line, crucifixion line, get your cross and everything. And
yeah.
Pilate goes out and speaks to the crowd. Now, his friend Biggest Dickus is also there with him.
Yeah.
He's a real person who also has a speech impediment.
Yes. And the crowd thinks it's hilarious, so they keep telling names that are hard for these two to say.
And they're just laughing so hard. They are rolling on the ground.
Yeah. And it's funny because, they, like, keep saying, because Pontius Pilate's he's like, oh, I'll be nice and I will release one prisoner, but every single prisoner that they say isn't really a real prisoner. They're just saying the name because it's funny. And then he's like, none of these people are in our prison. Pick somebody in our prison, like, seriously. And the crowd's just, like, dying on the ground, and then Judith comes up and she yells out Brian's name, and so they're getting ready. They're gonna release Brian, they talk about it, but they don't release him.
It's like, well, they're going to, but they're like, we'll go get him. And so John Cleese's character goes down to, like, the prison and everything, and he's talking to This is Terry Gilliam and Eric Idle's characters. So, Terry Gilliam is it mute?
Yeah.
And is like mute and like hard of hearing. And Eric Idle has a stutter.
Yeah.
And he's like, John Cleese's trying to get like information out of those two when nothing's happening at all.
Yeah.
And he gets frustrated and leaves. And then after he leaves, they talk normally.
Yeah.
It's like,
it's
like
funny.
it was a whole bit there.
Yeah. Then so the crucifixion's getting started. They're on their march. And one of the guys comes up and he's like, oh, can I help you with that cross? And he's like, oh, yeah, sure. And he gives it to him and he runs off. I was like, that's what you get.
Yeah.
Dummy.
It was trying to be like, like the Jesus thing,
Yeah.
He's like, okay, bye. And just like runs off. He's like, wait a minute, this isn't mine.
Yep. But then they get them all hung up on their crosses, and then the People's Front of Judea is like on their way to Brian to release him. But, I mean, he's already up on the cross. And
they read like a statement or everything, saying, oh, like such a good job and everything, thanks for your sacrifice and everything. And they sing for him. Well, here's a jolly good fellow.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, you're so helpful, guys. So helpful.
And then we get the, as I called it, the crucifixion musical.
Well, not yet.
Oh, not yet.
Because they have because Brian's just so pissed at them, just yelling. He's just yelling at the people. It's like, you guys are not helping at all. And the Roman guards come up, they're like, okay, who's Brian?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And the person who was, like, crucified next to Brian had been telling him, he's like, oh, I'm going to get rescued or everything. It's fine. I've been crucified, like, several times. It's nothing. And he's like, I'm Brian. And Brian's like, wait a minute. No, he's not. I'm Brian. And then it turns to everyone saying that they're Brian, which is a Spartacus thing. If you've seen the movie Spartacus, you know that. Because everyone claims they're Spartacus. And so they released the wrong guy, of course.
Yeah.
And then you get what was it? A suicide group comes. It's forgot their name.
Oh, yeah.
They're the suicide group, to die along with Brian. And they stab themselves and they die. He's like, you are no help either. No help at all. And Judith comes and saying, oh, they explained everything to me. I'm so proud of you for doing this and everything, and just like walks away. And Brian just like, ugh.
Yeah.
And then
it's the crucifixion musical.
My favorite song of all time. This is my favorite song of all time. It's Always Look on the Bright Side of Life.
Yeah.
And that's how the movie ends. They're all singing on these crosses, singing about always look on the bright side of life.
Yeah.
Oh, love it. Love this song.
But yeah, that's the end of it.
And that is the movie.
So the music is by Jeffrey Bergen. He is known for the Forsyte Saga from 2002 to 2003. It's a TV show. The Bride Shed Revisited from 1981 and Longitude from 2000. His very first ever thing that he worked on was a BBC Play of the Month. That was a TV show, and the episode that he did was The Changeling in 1974. He did pass away, I believe it was 2010. So anything we have from now on, or from like 2010 on, is just music that they've taken from other movies that he would have done, any other movies or TV show, and just put it in the new stuff. So, because he is no longer here.
Yeah.
But I did like what music there was. I felt like it was well placed, and I did like the placement of the song at the end. thought it was
I
good.
was like, Eric actually wrote the song. He wrote the words for it and everything, the melody for it. So it's his.
Gotcha.
And I will say I had the privilege of singing this song with Eric Idle when I saw him and John Cleese. They end their shows with that song. And I got to sing it live. Oh,
That's fun.
like, it's one of my favorite memories now. Singing Always Look on the Bright Side of Life with Eric Idle. It is!
But yeah. Yeah, I did like the music in this. Nothing really, other than that last song, nothing really stood out music-wise.
Yeah. It's pretty subtle.
Which is it's a good thing when it doesn't stand out too much. At least for me, because that means it fit really well and it wasn't distracting. But yeah, there's that. Comparison, because I texted you and told you it kind of reminded me of Monty Python's Holy Grail as well as Ben-Hur. I felt like it was kind of a cross between those.
I can see the
really
Ben-Hur for sure, especially
really
since
the
we've
only
seen it now.
Comparison, yeah. It's really the only comparison I have for it. Because Ben-Hur is kind of in the same time frame here.
Yeah.
And then Monty Python's Holy Grail, of course, is just the same group of actors just doing something else. So
And I'm like, and this actually reminds me, mostly because they're both completely religious satire, is Book of Mormon.
never seen it.
It's a musical. It's about Mormons.
Oh, I know. I know what it is.
Yeah, it's just like the sacrilegious stuff and this religious satire. That's what both of them are, and it just both are comedies and both are freaking hilarious. So
Yeah.
I'm like, that's kind of their inspiration for them too. I'll see, because this movie came out in '79, and
Yeah.
Book of Mormon came out in the 2010s. So
Yep. So, trivia. I do have a few.
go ahead.
So, the tea time thing at the beginning. So those were all extras. The people, like, walking and stuff. And, they had originally sent them away saying, okay, you're done for the day. But then they decided, no, they weren't. So they were all, like, walking back. And it just so happened to be at what would have been for real tea time. That's why they put tea time there. Is because it was like actually tea time when they filmed that shot. The big boulder in the stoning scene that they drop on John Cleese. It was actually a real boulder, but they just hollowed it out.
Yeah.
I was like, how do you hollow out a boulder? Do you just like get a vacuum cleaner and suck it all out? Like, I don't understand. I really do not understand at all how they managed that, but congratulations. The part where where Brian was doing the graffiti, the paint on the wall.
Yes.
That was in a real historical place, and they couldn't get the paint off, so they just got other paint and painted it stone color over the red.
I was like, I knew about that one. I did.
Yeah, I was like, this is just, like, that part to me is funnier than the actual skit that was in the movie. Like, just imagining them going and having to paint over what they messed up and trying to convince the people that, like, keep that historical site up and running, that it was like that when they got there. Is just imagining that in my mind with this group of people is just hilarious. And then when Pontius Pilate is talking about introducing his friend Biggest Dickus, the soldiers, like all the Roman soldiers, were not told what he was going to say. They were just told that they weren't allowed to laugh. So that reaction of them trying not to laugh was for real. Like, that was actually the people trying so hard not to laugh at that. Because they had no idea he was going to say Biggest Dickus.
Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of funny too. But that's all I got for trivia.
I was gonna say about Graham Chapman as Brian, with the part when he's completely naked in front of everybody. Terry Jones, after they first filmed like that first part, like the first take of it, he's like, I think everyone's gonna know that you're not Jewish because he's uncircumcised and Jewish men are circumcised, so they had to fix it with a rubber band.
Yeah.
Which I thought was funny. I'm like, well, good attention to detail there. Even though the scene is not very long, that part. It's not like 5-10 seconds.
Like, somebody would literally have to pause it, zoom in, and examine to know if he was circumcised or not.
I was like, that's Terry Jones for you, though. He's pretty detail-oriented when it comes to stuff like that.
But I'm just like, well, now it's just such a common thing to be circumcised.
Yeah.
That,
I mean, whatever floats your boat, I guess.
Yeah, I'm like, they do it when they're babies now, so it doesn't really matter.
That's true. So the Monty Python troupe, they did six. It was 6 of them, and they altogether did over 40 characters.
Yeah,
that is a lot. I'm like, but that's how they normally do things. I'm like, there's 6 of them. They're just gonna do all kinds of different parts. Men, women, they don't care. Like we mentioned earlier, this movie has been banned in I don't know how many countries, Kat. Can you remember?
40?
A lot. Yeah, that's a lot.
Somewhere around there?
Yeah, it's banned in a lot of countries, mostly because, I think it's like blasphemy and, sacrilegious and everything. And I'm like, and the funny part is John Cleese thought it was hilarious that all these people were protesting against this movie. And he's like, hey, we brought everybody together in 2,000 years.
Yeah.
Because, the joke of people always fight over religion and everything, and they're all reunited against Monty Python. So he thought it was hilarious. I will like to say this. This movie was helped finance by George Harrison.
Yeah.
The Beatle. It's actually written in Eric Idle's, recently, his autobiography, Always Look on the Bright Side of Life. He talks about, because him and George were really good friends, and they were trying to figure out how to get the money to do this movie, because no one was wanting to, support them on Life of Brian, because, people think it's, sacrilegious and all that. And George is like, I'll do it. And he literally took out a mortgage on his house.
Yep.
And paid for the movie to get done. And he's actually has a cameo in this movie.
Oh,
yeah,
really?
They let him be in the movie. And
oh, wasn't it like right at the end?
Yeah, he's in there. He's got to catch him. And he made the joke. He's like, I paid a bunch of money to pay for a movie ticket.
Yeah. Well, and he did it because he wanted to see the movie. Like, he was so intrigued by it having been banned in all these countries. He's like, well, I want to see it now. So he's like, well, I'm going to pay for it then.
He's like, because Eric told him the idea and everything. He's like, this is brilliant. I love it.
Yeah.
I'm in now.
Yeah.
And so it does say in the credits, executive producer, George Harrison. Which I think was cool. So you got a Beatles connection to Monty Python. I'm like, I love that. I think this is interesting. I like this one. It's just a little thing based off this movie. So in the Venice Film Festival, there is an award called the Brian Award, which is presented to the most atheist or rationalist movie in that film festival.
Gotcha.
And I'm like, that is great. So this movie inspired a award in a sense.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's great. I think that's all I had. Yeah. Because we mentioned things throughout the movie, too, when we were talking about it.
Yeah. So, where it has been on the list before and where it is at today as of recording, in 2010, it was number 164. 2012, it was number 162. 2014, it's number 173. 2016, number 183. 2018, number 185. And then as of today, when we are recording, it is number 205. So it is dropping. It has been dropping for a few years. And I think that's just kind of the same old thing, like just so many new movies popping up on this list just because they're so well done. And also, seeing as how, I knew Monty Python was like a group and they did a bunch of stuff, but Holy Grail, I think, is their most popular one. And I think a lot of people know Holy Grail, but if you're not like a huge fan of Monty Python and you're not a fan of Monty Python, then you don't really know about any of the other ones, and that's probably part of the reason this one's kind of falling. But I think those are the two reasons really that this one is falling, just the newer movies and the fact that it's not one of the more popular Monty Python movies.
It might be
I think it is pretty popular. But
it might be partly because, people have things shoved up their ass and can't take a joke.
That's true.
That might be part of it. And I'm like, it should be going up because it just had its anniversary. It did. It's 40 years now for this movie.
Yeah.
And I feel like it should go up, but I can understand why it would be falling. I can. Even though it should stay on this list because it's a brilliant movie and everyone needs to see it at least once in their lifetime. But that's my personal opinion.
I agree. At least once. But so previously number 182, the 2010 list of Ratatouille from 2007. The 2012 list, A Bourne Ultimatum from 2007. 2014 list, The Grand Budapest Hotel from 2014. 2016 list, It Happened One Night from 1934. 2018 list, Jurassic Park from 1993. And as of today when we are recording, Tokyo Story from 1953. So that one moved up one, because last week it was our number 183 movie. So some podcast trivia for our podcast. So this movie came out in 1979. So far, the only other one on our list that came out that year was Stalker, which was that wasn't it Russian?
It's Russian.
The one that I thought was about aliens.
The one you thought it was aliens, and I'm like, no, Kat, it's not about aliens. But that helped you pay attention during the movie, so I guess it helped.
Pretty sure it was about aliens. And then votes wise, this had around the same amount of votes as Dead Poets Society.
Another good movie.
And then I added two more. This has on Rotten Tomatoes 95, like we said, which is with the same rating is Dog Day Afternoon, Before Sunset, Diabolique, Catch Me If You Can, and 12 Years a Slave. So that's some good company there, I think.
Yeah.
Well,
not bad.
Kind of. Could be better.
I agree.
And then for Metacritic, it has a 77. The company it keeps there is Paper Moon, The Princess Bride, Before Sunrise, Logan, Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, which we did for one of our events, our Harry Potter event, and Wild Tales.
Huh.
Yeah.
I was like, I like it with The Princess Bride and the Logan.
But yeah. So that is all that. So, favorite line. I have a few.
I have 10. Where do you want me to start? You can start probably because I'm a huge Monty Python fan, so I'll let you start.
The one that was from my favorite scene. You haven't given us time to hide. I just was cracking up at that. I thought it was so funny. And then it go? Oh. Symbolic of his struggle against reality. I thought that was a very sarcastic line. And it was hilarious.
They're like, I would say something like this.
Definitely. If it's not a personal question, are you a virgin? I'm just like, that is a very personal question. And then, after Pontius Pilate is, like, sitting there naming all these people to bring out of the jail, he goes, do we have anyone in our prison? I thought that was pretty funny, too. But that's all I got, though.
Okay. Don't you oppress me. What have the Romans ever done for us?
Yeah, the whole list of everything they've done.
We will probably get away with crucifixion. That's, the other prisoner giving Brian shit. He's like, you'll probably get away with this crucifixion.
Yeah.
I'm worried about what you have against birds. That part, I'm not going to lie, that line, like, this time made me crack up even more. 18 years of terrible silence and you tell me to shush. I like that line. These two kind of go together. I am the Messiah, now fuck off. Yeah. And then they respond, how should we fuck off? You are the Messiah, I know, I followed a few.
Yep.
He's not the Messiah, he's a very naughty boy. And, of course, I gotta quote my favorite song. I have to. I'll say two of them. Of course, the title, Always Look on the Bright Side of Life. And this one. For life is quite absurd, and death's the final word. You must always face the curtain with a bow.
Yeah, that one's way too long.
Oh, I know. Hey, I gotta quote my song.
Oh, yeah, but we're not picking that one.
Oh, I know. I love this movie, so I'm, like, open to whatever. Yeah. This is tough. There's so many good lines in this movie. It's a great script.
Yeah, it's really good. I think my absolute favorite, just because John Cleese did such a good job delivering it, is that symbolic of his struggle against reality.
You like that one?
I did like that one a lot.
Between mine, I like Always Look on the Bright Side of Life and You Are the Messiah, I Know, I Followed a Few. Those are my options I like.
You can pick.
Can I pick?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, shit. Well, that makes it hard. Oh. I gotta go with my song. I do. Always.
That big long one?
Always look on the bright side of life.
I'm not writing that down.
That's mine.
Okay.
I was like, no, not the long one. Always look on the bright side of life. Yeah.
I was not going to write that down. I was like, nope, pick another one. I'll pick.
I was like, no, just the title of the song.
That's acceptable. As I die over it.
Drink something.
Yeah, I have some soda, but that's not the best thing in the world.
Water's probably better. Or tea.
Yeah, I know. But it's downstairs.
Ugh.
I know. It's because I came up here and I was eating, and I had a soda with me while I was eating, and then I just never went back downstairs to get water. And then you text me that you were ready, and I was like, well, crap. Now I'm not going to get up. So. That's how that worked. Okay. So what is your rating?
I'm giving this a 9.
That's what I kind of figured.
It's a 9 for me. It fits with my other 9s, which is Logan, Beauty and the Beast, like other movies I just absolutely love. Why? I'm like, I just fit with my 9s. I don't it's very close to a 10. It really is for me. But it fits better with my 9s. And like, I love this movie. I do. I will say out of this, like the big 3 of like Holy Grail, Life of Brian, and Meaning of Life, it's probably like my second favorite of the 3. So that's probably why it's down to a 9. But yeah, again, I'm a huge Python fan. So anything involving them, I'm always in.
Okay. For me, this is an 8.
Holy shit.
Yeah. I liked it a lot. It was super funny.
I think it's like your highest comedy.
Yeah. Comedies aren't really too high for me, but Monty Python has a really good track record so far, seeing as how this and Holy Grail are the only ones I've seen, and I absolutely love Holy Grail. I think it's really just the content of Holy Grail that I love.
It's history.
Yeah, and it's got more like that fantasy type element to it because of the King Arthur type stuff it's got going on. But just because, like I said, there was a couple of the little skits that I felt went a little bit too long and were kind of unnecessary. The spaceship part, I was just like they could have done something else. I don't know what they could have done, but I just felt like that was a bit weird.
It's also Terry Gilliam, and he's weird like that. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's a Gilliam thing right there. I mean, we've seen Gilliam with the 12 Monkeys, so.
Yeah. And it was almost, for me, a little bit too long just because of the type of content it was. Like, not the comedy part. Like, this comedy, I didn't really have a problem with at all. It was more like the religious part because it started to get more towards the religious stuff towards the end. So I was starting to feel it drag for me personally. But that's just because of what the content was.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I can see that. I was like, I like how it just made fun of it, like, the entire time.
Yeah, I did like that it was making fun of it, but it just got too close to it that I was starting to be like, oh, okay, I'm done with this now.
Makes sense.
It's just one of those things.
I was like, the song always, like, makes it, like, at the end. That song just makes it better. It helps it.
Yeah, I did enjoy the song a lot. So, coming up, our next film is Into the Wild from 2007. So that will be out next week. That will be our last film before our holiday event, which will be Babes in Toyland from 1986 and Krampus from 2015 for me.
And I picked Santa Claus is Coming to Town from 1970 and The Nightmare Before Christmas from 1993.
Yep. And I have decided those will come out the week of the 23rd. So the 23rd, 24th, 25th, and 26th. Each day there will be an episode. Just kind of spread out the holidayness. I realize these are all really pretty much Christmas movies. But I've never seen like a Hanukkah or Kwanzaa movie. So
I'm like, they're a little harder to find. Yeah.
Yeah. But still, it's like that time of year. And I felt like it was better to spread them out through that week to kind of celebrate more of the holidays rather than just releasing it on Christmas.
Like,
so that will be out that week.
Technically, Passover starts later this year, and it starts around that time. I think it starts on the 22nd.
I think either Hanukkah or Kwanzaa starts like the 18th or 19th. I'd have to look at a calendar because I did see it. I just don't remember.
The evening, like the sunset of the 22nd is Hanukkah. Okay. That's when it starts, and it goes for the 8 days.
Okay. And then I think then the 19th is Kwanzaa, is when that starts, I think. Based on a calendar that I saw, but it's possibly wrong. But yeah, we'll just release it that week, so that way it's spread out more over all of the holiday rather than just the one. So yeah, look forward to that. We are offering premium and Patreon. If you would like to do either of those, the link to Patreon is in the show notes. premium, you just go to our website. For $1 a month, you will get unedited episodes, early release episodes, and a special bonus episode every month. For $5 a month, you will get a patron-only chat forum. You can do polls and voting on what the next patron-only episode is going to be, once we don't have them planned out anymore, because we've got them planned out for a little bit. And then also you can join us for a movie of your choice every 50 movies, plus everything from the first tier. For $10 a month, we will do live stream Q&As once a month as soon as we get a $10 patron and figure out how to do it. And then fan recognition wherever you would like that to occur, like in the episode, on the website, on our social media, wherever you would like it to occur. And you can pick a movie of your choice every 25 movies, or you can pick an event besides the Harry Potter event to join us for every time that event occurs. And obviously everything from the previous 2 tiers. So, if you are interested in that, go ahead and check it out. Patreon, link is in the show notes. Premium, just go to the website. And all of that really does is supports us in being able to pay for the website. Our special monthly episode for December is our Golden Globe predictions, which by the time this episode comes out, the nominees will have been released. So we'll be getting on that shortly to determine who we think's going to win some Golden Globes this year. If you can't support us via Patreon or Premium, you can always leave ratings and reviews. That helps us out a lot. Lets us know like what's good and what's bad, what we can improve upon, stuff like that. Reviews are for that. Ratings just help us get more listeners. You can talk to us on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, or you can email us. Share the show with your friends. Our music is by Audiobinger. You can find him on Facebook, YouTube, and his website, audiobinger.net. So until next time with Into the Wild, bye.
Bye.